I'm not going to ask you what your favorite movie is today. I'm going to ask you something more personal than that. I'm going to ask about the movies that you watch alone. The ones that you'd never put on your Letterboxd. The ones that you turn off when somebody enters the room. The one that is by every critical standard established absolutely certifiably objectively terrible, and yet you watch. And you probably watched it over half a dozen times. I know I have. Well, don't look away. We all have one, and I'm here to tell you that that movie, however embarrassing, ridiculous, and critically demolished that movie you love is in secret, might be the most psychologically honest thing about you. Welcome to episode 3 of Psycho Cinema Therapy Theater. I'm Dwayne Walker, and today we're going to dive into the guilty pleasures, and we find out what it's really doing for you. But before we go anywhere, I want to challenge you on something. The phrase guilty pleasures assumes two things. First, that the film is bad. Second, that you should feel guilty for watching it. Well, I want to push back on both. Bad? By whose standard? The critical establishment has been spectacularly wrong before. Films that were dismissed on release are now considered masterpieces. Films that won every award available are now forgotten. The relationship between critical consensus and genuine human connection to a film is, at best, complicated. And guilt. Guilt implies that you've done something wrong. You haven't. You've had a genuine emotional response to a work of art, or at least a piece of entertainment, and your nervous system found something in it that was worth tuning into. That's not a character flaw, that's data. The real question, the psychologically interesting question, isn't why do you like something bad? It's what is this film giving you that no other film is? Because what we've discovered doing this work is that people don't return to bad movies out of stupidity or lack of taste. They return to them because those films are meeting a specific, real, and often unacknowledged need. Find the need, and you find something true about yourself. So, let's talk about what bad movies do that good movies won't. Let me make a distinction that I think almost explains everything about the guilty pleasure phenomena. They tell the truth. They show the complexity of human relationships, the ambiguity of moral choices, the way good people do terrible things and terrible people have genuine moments of grace. They resist easy resolutions. They make you sit down with discomfort. They reflect the world as it actually is. And that is genuinely valuable. And here's the thing about the world as it actually is. It's exhausting. The world as it actually is contains injustices that don't get corrected. Relationships that don't resolve. Hard work that doesn't always get rewarded. Good intentions that produce bad outcomes. Complexity that never simplifies. Your nervous system spends an enormous amount of energy navigating all that every single day. And then you come home and you put on Twister, or Roadhouse, or The Fast and the Furious, or in my case, Venus and Furs, or whatever your particular brand of cinematic comfort food happens to be. And for 2 hours, the hero wins. The threat is neutralized. The couple gets together. The underdog triumphs. Justice is served cleanly and completely. Good is obviously good, and bad is obviously bad, and everyone gets exactly what they deserve. This is your nervous system asking, begging, for a break from complexity. The bad movie isn't lying to you about how the world works. It's giving you a temporary refuge from the truth. And sometimes, more often than we admit, that refuge is exactly what we need to go back out that refuge, and sometimes, and more often than we admit, that refuge is exactly what we need in order to go back out and face the truth again tomorrow. Jung talked about the concept of compensation, the idea that psyche naturally moves toward balance. When conscious life is heavy, the unconscious seeks lightness. When reality is complex, the imagination seeks simplicity. Your guilty pleasure isn't a failure of taste. It's your psyche compensating. Now let's look at the 5 types of guilty pleasures. So let's get specific, because not all guilty pleasures are doing the same psychological work. Here are 5 types and what each one is telling you about what you actually need. Type 1. The comfort catastrophe. This is the disaster movie, the action blockbuster. The film where enormous amounts of stuff explodes. The stakes are literally civilization ending, and somehow one incredible attractive person saves everything with about 45 seconds to spare. Don't you wish reality was like that, especially these days? Independence Day, Armageddon, San Andreas, The Day After Tomorrow. Here's what's interesting about those who love those films the most obsessively. It's often the people who feel deeply responsible for things in their real life. People who carry a lot, who worry, who lie awake thinking about the things that could go wrong and what they'd do about them. In real life, the things you're worried about aren't visible, diffuse, hard to name, and impossible to punch. Financial pressure, relationship strain, health anxiety, career uncertainty. But in Armageddon, the threat is a giant asteroid. You can see it. It has a specific size and a specific trajectory and a specific arrival time, and there's a specific solution involving Bruce Willis and a nuclear warhead. The comfort catastrophe makes the unmanageable feel manageable. It gives anxiety a shape, and then it resolves it. If this is your film type, the question your unconsciousness is asking is, what in your real life feels too big and too shapeless to confront? Type 2, the wish fulfillment fantasy. This is the film where the protagonist is ordinary, just like you, just like me, and then circumstances conspire to reveal that they are actually extraordinary, special, chosen, destined for something larger than their current life suggests. Made in Manhattan, The Karate Kid, Cinderella Story, basically every sports underdog movie that's ever been made. The wish fulfillment fantasy is enormously popular and consistently dismissed by critics, because critics seem to value complexity over comfort. And there's nothing complex about this genre's central promise. But that central promise is doing real work for real people. People who are powerfully drawn to wish fulfillment fantasies are usually sitting within a gap, the gap between who they feel themselves to be on the inside and what their current external circumstances reflect back at them. They know, on a level that they can't always articulate, that there is more in them than is currently being expressed or recognized. And the wish fulfillment fantasy says, you're right, you're not wrong about yourself. The world just hasn't caught up yet. That's not delusion, that's hope. If this is your film, and occasionally it's my film too, the question is, what do you know about yourself that your current circumstances haven't yet confirmed? Type 3, the so bad it's good spectacle. This is the film that has achieved a kind of transcendence through sheer incompetence. The special effects that don't work, the dialogue that seems to have been written by someone who has never heard humans speak, the plot that abandons its own logic after the first 15 minutes. That would be like Troll 2, The Room, Birdemic, Plan 9 from Outer Space. What's fascinating about the so bad they're good films is the experience it produces, communal hilarity, shared disbelief. The particular joy of watching something fail so completely that it becomes its own kind of art. People who love this genre tend to share a specific psychological trait, a high tolerance for absurdity, and a deep suspicion of pretension. They find something genuinely liberating about a film that has no idea how bad it is, because it exposes the gap between intention and execution that exists in everything, including the things we take most seriously. The So Bad It's Good film is a reminder that failure can be hilarious rather than catastrophic, that the gap between what we intend and what we produce is universal, that imperfection at the right angle becomes its own kind of perfection. If this is your film, the question that you need to ask yourself is, where in your life are you taking yourself so seriously? Type 4, The Nostalgia Relic. This is the film that is not objectively good, and you know it. But you saw the specific moment in your life when it meant everything, and you've never been able to fully leave that moment behind. For a lot of us, that's the first movie that we ever saw when we were children, and we grow up and we see, okay, this is really a bad movie, but yet you're constantly drawn to it, because when you see a movie as a child and it has an effect on you, you're just not going to let that go, no matter how bad it becomes, or no matter how bad it is when you realize that into adulthood. The acting is wooden, the effects are dated, the story has holes you could drive a truck through. And none of that matters even slightly, because when you watched it, you were 11 years old and the world was a certain size and everything felt like it was still possible. If this is your film, the question is, what did you have then that you feel you've lost? And more important, is it actually gone? Or have you just stopped believing it's available to you? Type 5, The Unapologetic Escape. This is the film that makes no pretense of artistic ambition and doesn't care. It's exactly what it is: loud, fast, frequently absurd, occasionally incoherent, and it delivers this particular brand of entertainment with a kind of purity that more serious films can't match. Con Air, Speed, every entry in a franchise that should have stopped 3 films ago. The Unapologetic Escape is beloved by people who spend a great deal of their real lives being asked to be thoughtful, measured, nuanced, and responsible. People who code switch constantly, who perform competence and composure, who really get just to turn their brain off and watch something happen. The Unapologetic Escape gives you permission to not think, to just feel, to react rather than reflect. It is, in the truest sense, a vacation from consciousness. And vacations, as you know, is not a character flaw. Being unconscious for too long might be, though. But if this is your film, the question is, where in your real life are you never allowed to just let go? So I want to come back to that word now. Guilty. The guilty pleasure. Why do we feel guilty about films? About these films? Not because they're harming us, not because they're immoral, but because we've absorbed a cultural message that our entertainment choices reflect our intelligence, our sophistication, our value as people. If you watch Bergman, you are serious and deep. If you watch Sharknado, you are something else. If you watch Last House on the Left, you've essentially watched Bergman's The Virgin Spring. Look it up. What you choose to watch when you're fully autonomous, when no one is watching, when there is no social performance required, is one of the most authentic data points about who you actually are. Not who you're trying to be, not who you present to the world, but who you actually are when the performance stops. The shame you feel about your guilty pleasure is interestingly precisely because it reveals the gap between your public self and your private needs. And closing that gap, or at least understanding it, is some of the most important psychological work a person can do. The guilty pleasure isn't the problem. The guilty pleasure is the clue. So, here's what I want you to take from this episode. The next time you find yourself reaching for that film, the one you never admit to, the one the critics demolish, the one that your more sophisticated friends would never raise an eyebrow at, don't reach past it. Put it on. Watch it fully. And while you're watching it, ask yourself one question. What is this movie giving me that I'm not getting anywhere else? The answer to that question is not an indictment of your taste. It's a map to something you need. Maybe it's simplicity. Maybe it's hope. Maybe it's permission to laugh at failure. Maybe it's a time machine to a version of yourself that you miss. Maybe it's just 2 hours of not having to think. All of these needs are legitimate, and all of these needs are human. And all of these needs, when you understand them, can be met in your actual life and not just in the dark of a movie theater. In our next episode, we're going to look at something we haven't talked about yet. The films that changed you. Yes, they do exist. They didn't just move you, they changed you. The ones that you walked into as one person and walked out as someone slightly different. Because those films aren't just entertainment either. They're turning points, and they chose you for a reason. I'm Dwayne Walker, and this is Psycho Cinema Therapy. See you in the dark. Hey, and drop your guilty pleasure in the comments. No judgment, this is a safe space, and I mean that. Whatever it is, however embarrassing, I want to know, and I'll tell you what I see in it. If this episode hits something real for you, share it. Someone you know is watching their film alone right now and wondering what it says about them. Let's give them an answer.